involved in a campaign in Leeds where we were fighting to stop building taking place on our local playing fields, and we were able to win that campaign. We were able to force our council back from doing that. We were told by councillors in the run up to that, oh, don't bother, you know, there's nothing that can be done, it's a done deal, and that, well, we proved that it wasn't a done deal. We organised in our community, we got people together for a big meeting in the area, like I'm sure you have been doing as well. We were going to have a march like you've had today, but the council retreated before we had the march, because just the publicity was enough to push them back then. And given the scale of the cuts in Kirklees, I'm sure it will take more than that, but you've shown yourselves as determined to fight, determined to say we're not going to accept this, and put that case to other people. And as we march down from Batley today, then lots of people were tooting their support, and I think you'll have won many more people over to supporting you in the future as well. People in this area have been badly let down, I think, by all the politicians. It's ironic that David Cameron's been brought back into the government, because I would say some of this started with him when his government in 2010, 2011 started making huge cuts to council services, and in conjunction with the Lib Dems in government and the Labour Council here, instead of standing up for local people then, went and carried those out. And we're now dealing with the consequences of those 13 years now of austerity that we've seen. Back in 2010, there were groups that fought to defend services. You had the council union, Unison, organised demonstrations that myself and some other people may have attended at the time against those cuts. And we have to say, right, that was 13 years ago. But if those councillors and those MPs and other politicians stood up and were counted now, and stood with ordinary people, so as people are saying, find another way, then they could find another way now, and we could have these services protected. In the short term, then the council needs to vote against these closures. They need to stop them going ahead. They say they're in danger of not balancing the books. Let's find a way to balance the books. There's £9 million, I think, being made available from the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. That's a start. What about looking at the reserves? And there's councillors, when they talk about reserves, they talk about the general fund, but there's earmarked reserves, sometimes earmarked for years in the future. They can unearmark them and use them now. Councils have what's called prudential borrowing power, where they can borrow not just on financial basis, but on the basis of supporting services and stopping spending more money in the future. Because let's be clear, if these services close, there'll be more spending on the NHS and other things because of people not getting the exercise that they've needed. So there's things they can do. But in the long term, then the year-on-year funding cuts to councils need reversing. And unfortunately, there are dozens of councils up and down this country at the moment who are in this similar situation, run by both Labour and by Tories. And other people refer to this, but it's no good Rishi Sunak saying that Kirklees is a failed council. He's the Prime Minister. If anybody could do something about it, has the power to do something about it, then it's him at least. You know, he should be doing something rather than sounding off. There's talk in the media this weekend of there being tens of billions in what they call fiscal headroom available for the autumn statement. Instead of that going on a cut to inheritance tax or something like that, that money should be used to save services like these, to save the care homes, to save the leisure centres, to save the other services that people are marching in other councils to save. That's what they should be doing with that. There's a general election due in the next year. So we should be saying to all of the political parties, are you going to make sure the funding is there to stop these closures? And if none of them will do that, then those politicians should face a challenge. The councillors should face a challenge at the local elections, the MPs at the general election. There's many people here, I think, that would be far better representatives of the local communities around here than some of these MPs and councillors. And you should think about it, because ultimately, if they think they're doing it to protect their positions and that, we should put their positions under threat. You know, because nothing should be too much to make sure that ordinary people have the facilities they need. So let's stand together, let's keep challenging them, and I hope if they're carrying on doing this in May and whenever the general election is, that some people here will be standing as anti-cut councillors and fighting to ensure these services are kept open. Thank you very much. Solidarity, everyone.